So Malaysia just had its 15th general election. So there is a hung parliament. What is going on? Who will be the next prime minister? We will be discussing that in today's episode, episode 52 of Teh Tarik with Walid. And I have with me somebody who's quite a legend in Malaysian politics. He was one of the very, very early members of Parti Keadilan Rakyat. He was the former vice president of Parti Keadilan Rakyat. He was arrested and he has been in the scene. He was together with Anwar Ibrahim. He even contested in this election as an independent, not as a PKR candidate. So that's an interesting fact. We will discuss that and hopefully he can shed light on the situation, and hopefully the viewers of Teh Tarik with Walid will find out who becomes prime minister before the whole world finds out, okay? If he has such information.
Okay.
Hello,
Okay.
how are
okay?
you, Abi?
Yeah.
Yes, it's very good.
I'm okay.
Okay. Thank you so much
Okay,
for doing
okay.
this. I can hear you very well. And
All right. Okay.
before we start,
Thanks.
I'm gonna be asking some difficult questions, hopefully. But I just wanted to say I
Okay.
am in awe of your journey. I just reread that you were 35 during the Reformasi period, right? And the iconic picture of you standing in front of the red van, right? And that was inspiring. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. And I know I could never do such a thing. Right. So Wabi, let's start.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
we have to start with this, right? So do you feel betrayed by your party?
No. I don't think in the struggle there is nobody or anybody, right? So it is a choice. You see, part of the struggle that we assert for, we trying to fight for freedom, we try to fight for justice. It is a choice that each individual must make, and therefore we are not doing buying amanah saham, or we are not trying to invest ourselves in anything, because when we make a choice, then it comes together with all the consequences of the choices that we make. So for me, of course, people say political parties like that, like this, like that, but I'm conscious about it. There is a possibility that I will be let down or I will be eliminated one day. But for me, that is just part of the struggle.
Right. Thank you so much. That's very magnanimous, right? So if you were dropped, for younger blood, as Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim said, and he's not exactly a spring chicken himself, right? So don't you think there's some contradiction there?
No, I think I'm not so concerned about when I was dropped because I was given to the younger blood. I think for me, it's a question of, first, it's an organization question, right? When the party need to strengthen itself, it always requires people who can work there and connected with the people. And then when we promise somebody that, okay, there is one term in exchange, one term for transition, then I'll come back. And this is also issues that we have to honor our agreement, right? Thirdly, partly I also know why I was dropped, which I disagree, and I have to show that I disagree with the decision. I can disagree quietly, but I can also disagree publicly.
Right. So you contested to show your public disagreement. You contested as independent because
particularly in the issues of Batu. Yeah.
Yeah, and even so Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim aside, I mean, you and him have been through so much, right?
Yeah.
Like over the years,
Yes.
in and out of jail and so on.
Yes.
But even the candidate that you endorsed as an independent, who won because of your endorsement, to then don't you feel that at least that particular part is a sort of a betrayal, or you are zen about it?
I don't use the word betrayal. I just think that in politics there must be certain ethics, right? Certain things that we undertake, we agree with somebody, whether it's with me, whatever. If it's one term, we agree one term, but you decided to play politics, want to extend your term. That's within your right, but then I can also disagree. So, and the thing is, we also see in politics, a lot of time, it is not, if someone's that come about just by luck and also because of the certain wave, eventually it won't last, right?
Right.
My public stand, right, whether it's the last round when I endorse the incumbent or this round when I went against him, both are the issues that I want to bring out is that we, as a politician, you can't just purely by this sort of wave of luck, but eventually you have to come down to the real world, trying to present what are you bringing up for the communities. So I'm glad that with no regret, I didn't win the election, but throughout the 2 weeks period, for me, it's very fruitful because I was able to be very compact, bringing out the issues, the contradiction in terms of selection of candidate, the contradiction about connecting with the grassroots, with the community, and then the contradiction between taking on big issues that supposed to be debated in the election campaign. Even though election is about winning, but at the same time there must be narrative that to have public awareness purposes. So I was able to bring out those issues and policy debate. All these things, I think it is useful to make people understand that to contest for election is not purely about who's going to be prime minister, which party is going to control Putrajaya, but there must be more than that.
Right. So, and through contesting, you actually get to put issues on the table, right? Even if you're not going to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And based on your involvement with the party, right? I don't think it is anything personal, right? I mean, Dr. Mahathir didn't win as well. I think it was party candidates were going to win. I don't think it was a rejection of Tian Chua, the politician. Yeah. Thank you so much. So since you know Anwar Ibrahim inside out, right? So what's going to happen? Is he going to be the prime minister finally?
I think now the fate is again left it to member of parliament that has been elected. So now, for me, we have to understand why people voted for PH overwhelmingly. People say, okay, because they want Anwar to be prime minister, which is true. On the other hand, we see why there's such a big swing against Barisan Nasional, right?
Yeah.
It means that the opposition bloc, either from PM bloc or the PH bloc, has presented themselves to be the crusader against the corruption and the whole manipulation that has been done by the Mahkamah cluster, the court cluster. So the hatred was very strong, right? So it's so much so that there was a big swing that people want an alternative government, a government which is free from this group of people, Barisan Nasional, right? So that's why I say when both blocs received their mandate with almost equal numbers of votes, equal numbers of percentage of vote, as well as the seats. Seats. So we can't be going into the discussion purely on a mathematical formula like, oh, we want to reach 112, right? 112 on what basis? 112 must be on the value that we presented to the voters, and the meaning of anti-hopping law must be not on paper. You cannot change party, but the people voted for us, for PH, against corruption, against Barisan Nasional, right? People voted for PN, is also against Barisan Nasional, against Zahid Hamidi's corruption.
Exactly.
Now, both blocs are trying to court Barisan Nasional to be part of them.
Exactly.
To me, that is a betrayal of the
Of the
people's
mandate.
trust.
Right.
Yeah, of course, people come to justify to say that if you're non-Muslim, you want a moderate Malaysia, therefore UMNO is a better choice.
Right.
When you are Muslim, you also say, oh, okay, we'd rather to have a Muslim brothers to be in the government than have DAP and
Right.
Anwar Ibrahim in the government.
Right.
I think these are lame excuses, right? If this is the issues, then don't bring it out to say that we are firmly against the corruption.
Exactly.
These are, for me,
Right.
if you ask me, I think the people, starting from civil societies, people who have voted, must call for a reconciliation of PH and PN. And who they want to be Prime Minister actually is, I think, each of them have their preferences.
Right.
They should discuss it out. But the issues they should discuss is not just about who to be Prime Minister. The
Right.
two bloc has to sit together and work out what type of reforms they want to bring, what type of common agreement and common agenda they can bring, which I think can be done, right? Find commonality among the two different blocs. Why do I argue for that? Because somehow this nation has to reconcile. We cannot have a PH government where you have PN and PAS outside and say, oh, this is all anti-Muslim.
Right.
Everything they do are trying to undermine Malay. We cannot have a Malay-dominated government by PAS, and then the non-Malay keep singing to say this is a Taliban state. This is not going to include our thing. So, I mean, for how long we want to be continue to be hostile, right? The leaders of both blocs, I urge them to take out their courage, to also to put aside these sort of prejudices, to come together to build the nation, instead of trying to deal with the kleptocrat now, deal with the Barisan Nasional that had been rejected by the people, right, to form government. I think that is not the way we should go.
Yeah, YB, what you said is very statesman-like, because I haven't heard anyone publicly calling for, even the civil society folks that you were mentioning, they have been sort of preparing the ground for a PHBN and trying to justify it the way you did. But what you said, no, Malaysia is multiracial now, it's so divided, you have to reconcile somehow, right? So, but that isn't happening. And BN, basically that was a rejection of Zahid, and now he's sort of the kingmaker. He's going to decide who becomes.
That's right.
That's a very strange situation, isn't it?
I think that is going against the vote that we have casted, right? Of course, you can create fear among the Malay that, okay, it's going to be Anwar Ibrahim and then all of us are going to be un-Islamic. Therefore, it's better to have Zahid than to have Anwar Ibrahim. Among the non-Malay, we can also play out the issues about you're going to have a Taliban situation, conservatism is going to dominant. Therefore, we'd rather have a moderate UMNO. Yeah, I mean, for whatever we say, we shouldn't allow UMNO to be the kingmaker, as they were clearly rejected by the people.
Right. Thank you so much. So if you were a member of parliament now with PKR, you would reject these overtures on both sides. You would say we cannot.
I will negotiate. I will try to bring about a reconciliation of the two. It requires a lot of difficulty, and I'm not saying it's easy. The prejudice is very deep.
Right.
But this prejudice is not just between the two politicians of two sides, but this prejudice is reflected in the society. If the leaders of the two blocs have no courage and cannot display sincerity to trying to work out something, that how do we coexist? How do we work together? Then this nation have no hope. We are going to continue to have this confrontation. We are going to continue to have the conflicts. And that's not what should happen. Take this opportunity now. Previously, UMNO is so dominated, like two-third majority. Nobody can question their racial supremacy, cannot question their corruption, cannot question everything. Now we have opportunity that there is certain reconciliation already happened. We can see very clearly the Malay skeptical about PH, but they also anti-corruption.
Right.
They are also voting against, those, manipulations and similarly, the non-Malay bloc has been voting all overwhelming for PH because they see that there is a possibility of a new political system without UMNO, right? So let's try to find the commonality and work it out. I mean, not easy, but if you have an opposite, UMNO control, having this with 30 seats extra, and then we have a slim majority. Once there is some internal conflict, they pull the plug underneath, they pull the carpet, the government fall. Then you have another government coming out.
Right.
And if this government don't want to fulfill their wish, they pull again, it will fall. So, and we have seen for the last 5 years, for the last 4 years, that's what happened. You have Sheraton and then Muhyiddin. You know, when UMNO not happy, they just pull out and Muhyiddin fall. Ismail Sabri refused to dissolve the parliament. UMNO said, if you don't do this, we're going to pull you out. So then he dissolved the parliament. Why we put ourselves, why we allowed them to hijack the government like this? So let's form a stable government. Yes, it will be a lot of compromise. There will be a lot of watered down policies, but at least we have a peaceful situation. Then at least we have opportunity to open out the door for the two hostile blocs to start talking to each other. At least to start talking to each other.
Right. And it has been done. DAP and PAS were in a decade long almost.
We're able to do it. Let's not go back to play this out about
if they wanted to. And this that's such a crucial alliance, right? Or potentially, right? DAP and PAS.
So both have to give way, halfway. I mean, PAS, I will urge that PAS and whoever who is still a bit rational within PN, stop taking this, no DAP, no extremist Chinese. And this country need that. I mean, you can't deny in the last election, the non-Malay population have clearly given their representation mandate to DAP. Right? You can't deny that. Similarly, we cannot deny a lot of young Malay has voted for PN in rejection of Barisan Nasional. Barisan Nasional have no more legitimacy to represent majority of the Malay in this country.
Right. And the irony is if they get the DPM ship, right? That would be
or whatever position. Whatever position in the government. I mean, if they are in as a minor partner, I don't care, right? But they cannot be the critical one that bring us to the threshold, to pass the threshold.
What if Anwar does a deal and he says, with BN, but no Zahid?
Well, it's still a very slim thing, you see. We talk about anti-hopping law. I mean, it's not about individual now. It's the entire symbolism of UMNO as a bloc. People rejected them, and UMNO has representing a certain culture that represent corruption, one MDB and all this racialism that is in UMNO. Like why people vote against it is not just, of course they vote against Zahid as such, but they also reject UMNO, right? Therefore, we cannot allow UMNO to be the main player. I don't mind if finally the formula also include UMNO, but that's okay. I mean, the point is they should not be playing that critical role that potentially can hold us for ransom.
Right.
Which is now what happened, right? Which is happening now. Because tomorrow, whichever bloc that has to go to the palace require blessing from UMNO.
Right.
I mean, that is such a paradox. How can a losing party is now deciding who go to the palace?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So thank you for that. Right. So when I saw the press conference in the middle of the night, and Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim said he already has the numbers, and I'm thinking this is 2008, this is 2020, this is why does he always do that? Why does he always jump the gun? And it's not helpful, right? Because then you create seeds of doubt amongst the electorate, right? And then, who is jumping around? Don't you think that's irresponsible before you have anything already, before the results are fully out, suddenly you say you have the numbers already?
Yeah, I don't want to comment on the way the information are communicated. Certainly, in the eyes of the public, it sounds too much of a repetition, and it reminds people that unfulfilled promise. I would say that we have to be very cautious, not overdo this, so much so that people are not losing confidence in us. So, unless we are really very solid, and shouldn't do it. But similarly, Perikatan also do.
Yeah, they also
claim
did.
that.
It's also
irresponsible. But I
irresponsible,
think
right?
there is no point for us to keep announcing it.
Yeah.
The reality is quite objectively. You got 111 or 112 is fixed, something that you don't need to announce. Whether you announce or not, it doesn't make
So why
a
do they
difference.
announce? They announce to basically tell other people also, right? To jump ship, right? Why else would there be a
Partly, and also partly is to give confidence to appease their own supporter, right?
okay?
So sometimes politicians mix up the communication to own supporter and communication to the public, and they do it together.
Right. Thank you so much. So let's change that a little, right? So you talked about DAP and the perception DAP has amongst conservative Malays, and I think this is a reality. I know academics, a lot of them try to downplay it, but on the ground we know this is a reality, right? So, but you were from PKR. Did you receive such suspicions, or is this specific to DAP or anybody who allies with DAP? Any Chinese?
I think DAP has a history because of the year of perception that DAP represent the Chinese interests, and similarly also, if you look back to DAP literature, they blame UMNO propaganda for doing it. So it's quite an irony now that you want to support UMNO, who has been, so viciously throwing lie and propaganda against you. But okay, I can accept that there's certain pragmatism needed. But again, back to my point, you shouldn't put the entire fate to UMNO as your surviving, surviving roots. So you must find other partners to balance out the critical position of UMNO.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. So, as just to confirm, so as a Chinese in PKR, you didn't really receive that amount of suspicion.
A bit less, much less, because to some extent, people in PKR, the Chinese and the non-Malay in PKR, being seen as a lot more integrated and we have a lot more opportunity to expose ourselves and to mingle ourselves in the very pure Malay environment. So that really very much in creating certain confident measure between the intercultural exchange. So I would think that if more of different communities can do a lot more of this exercise, it will help to release or ease the ethnic tension.
Right. So YB, 2018, don't you think the Pakatan Harapan already put the seeds of political expediency in place when they aligned with Dr. Mahathir?
I think it's quite different. It's the alignment is to destroy or to defeat a monopolistic power that has been so entrenched, and at the final blow to the change of government, which is critical for the democratization, right? Without that align, we may not be successful, right? So the point is, what it is important is after that, after the change of government, whether we can successfully implement policy that we want. With Mahathir, it's very clear there should be only a transitional, because after we stabilize the government, they will be handed over to the next generation. I mean, Mahathir also, by his age, he couldn't be occupying that position forever.
Yeah.
And in the formula also, the Mahathir's led party was not the most critical element on that, because
Right.
the rest of the party was a lot bigger. PKR got 50 seats at that time.
Right.
You know, together with DAP, we almost have 100 seats. And, you know,
They only had
Bersatu
13-ish, right?
within
Yeah.
about 12. Yeah,
Right,
so
12, yeah.
it's a very different situation. Today, when we want to form government, we require the support of UMNO, and then specifically the group that we have labeled as Cluster Mahkamah, right? So that's quite very different, right? And similarly also, I wonder within these 24 hours, we are able to lay down any agreement in terms of reforms, right?
Right.
The coalition in Pakatan Harapan, where Bersatu was part of it, we went through a long process of discussing the agenda, the manifesto, although Mahathir is not faithfully following it, but some part of it was able to be implemented, like Undi 18, right?
Right.
That some of the law was actually in place. So
Right.
at least there is a certain guidance of what this cooperation mean, right?
Right.
There are some policy element. I don't think within these 24 hours, UMNO Central Committee and PH is sitting down and trying to draft an agreement about what law we're going to amend and what sort of reform. It's purely one thing: get the numbers. Right. So which is okay. I mean, I agree that in the practical politics, we need to get the numbers. But we have to think, after we get the numbers, after we win the sworn in as Prime Minister, what do we do? Right? So, okay. I can also accept strategically, if I'm not fully committed to build in to support Anwar as Prime Minister, I think immediately after swearing in, the first thing Anwar should do is to invite PN to discuss a possibility of inviting them to come into the coalition, right? Which is an example of in 69, the coalition was not formed until 71, right? So the government has a time to make it the most inclusive one. So I don't mind. If that is a tactic that we just want to get through, to go to the palace, swear in, but the next thing that the new Prime Minister must do is to respect the mandate of the Rakyat. You cannot exclude 30% of the people who have voted for Perikatan Nasional. Bring them in, start discussion. We have about, PH has about 38 or 37% of the popular vote. Perikatan have about 30. I want to use this example. In I think it's 2005, when Germany have an election, the CDU led by Angela Merkel has about 34% of the popular votes. And the Social Democrats Party has about 33% of the popular vote, right? none of them can form a government by themselves, right? So finally, the two blocks, which are one left and one right, one conservative and one socialist, decided to sit down and form a unity government. And that unity government lasted for 3 terms. And what does it do? It has created the stability and the prosperity for the German government for 2 decades. And that also provides the stability for EU, where European Union was able to prosper under the leadership of the German government. So that's why I say, in this situation, I think it's important to recognize that PN has 30% of the popular vote, and PH has about 37% of the popular vote. We are very similar. UMNO only have 20% of the popular vote. Let's put these two blocks together and start to have reconciliation and start to have nation building.
So YB, there are a few comments. So like a boss asked whether the aligning with Zahid would be a betrayal of the people's trust. I think you already answered that. There are 2 positive comments here. So one where Ilah said saya hormat kesetiaan Tian Chua pada perjuangan. He respects your struggle, loyalty to the cause.
Okay.
And another one who says that you are the only one who's thinking with your brains right now. So YB, you are definitely saying I find it hard to disagree. I actually didn't really think about this. The PN PH unity government or alliance, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it. But what about knowing Anwar Ibrahim, right? What do you think would be a possibility for him?
I think Anwar is a politician. As politician, you are driven by the public demand. You are not just yourself. I mean, Anwar have an ambition to be Prime Minister. Anwar also have certain things that he wanted to do. He also have some reforms in his mind that through his own experience he wanted to change. And I think for him to fulfill those ambition, he required to be a bit more strategic in his thinking and his planning. By just taking a simple majority with Barisan Nasional, I doubt that the reforms that he intended to do or he promised us to do will be successful. Because even if UMNO within the government did not object to it, you're going to have very hostile public reaction like what we did in PH time. Everything we do, they will just say, oh, ini untuk orang Cina. Ini adalah anti Melayu Islam. So everything you do, you're going to face that, and you're going to spend a lot of publicity time to justify yourself. Instead of trying to implement it successfully, you're going to have a very difficult. We're going to sign a UN Human Rights Commission. Remember last round?
Yeah.
And then everyone just say, oh, this is going to give LGBT a free ride. This is going to allow the influx of refugees and all that. And then you want to say, okay, you want to do something, people will just say, you are against Islam. You want to take action on Zakir Naik, everyone say the Muslims start mobilizing. Why you persecuting the ulama? So you cannot move. You really cannot move, right? So the only way is trying to discuss in the cabinet and let everyone understand the rationale of why things are being done that way. So then we can move on.
Right. So it's not just the right thing to do, this national reconciliation, but also politically it's actually more expedient to do that.
It's more practical and effective way of doing things. You see, you want to buy. Remember we want to reduce a toll. We want to buy a highway, and then people say, this only benefit Damansara Chinese. It doesn't benefit us. So everything can be racialized because of this polarization.
Right. Thank you so much. So you said Anwar is interested in reforms. If he aligned with Zahid, and remember this is during the entire campaign, both of them denied that this will happen. There is no pact, there's nothing. So if he does align with Zahid, would it show that ultimately he's less interested in reforms and actually he's interested in the ultimate position?
Okay, it's not my place to criticize and evaluate Anwar, because Anwar, I think, let the historians and others to write about it. But I would like to see whoever Anwar represent as a prime minister to be successful in bringing about what we want. I mean, actually, I'm not so interested in whether his character is what his character is like, but it's important now the government, right? I mean, I'm also, let's say, when we are dealing with a unity government discussion, it might be open. I only stated my personal choice, but the government might decide to pick a neutral person, not Muhyiddin,
Right.
not Anwar. I mean, who
Right.
knows about that, right? I mean, they decided that Anwar might be magnanimous enough to say this is give to Muhyiddin. So I'm not trying to preempt this, and I'm not part of the discussion between the bloc. So for me, the new prime minister that produced by the new government, that I expect to be able to command the confidence of the people and to start implementing the reforms that we all wish to see. So that part, I'm still hopeful.
Right, thank you. So one of the things that I've always found that Malaysians are, I like hanging out with Malaysians. They're always very nice, very courteous, very friendly, right? And you see this in our everyday interactions, right, with them. You see this cross-racial as well. And you wouldn't guess that at the political level, right? It's so toxic, right? So do you agree with me, or do you think actually that
This is why I say it can be done. I mean, it's not that it cannot be done. You take two, Chinese or Indian or Malay sit in the war room, they can debate politics, and they will not pull out their guns and start shooting or punch out each other, which is very different. I mean, I don't want to look down on some of the South Asian countries which I have traveled, and people tell me that student union elections, someone get killed because of political ideological differences. Malaysia will never reach to that level, right? So I hope that our politicians can be at least like commoners who take a much more magnanimous and much more amicable position when you come to racial position. Yeah.
From what I've seen, even behind closed doors, the politicians are quite friendly to
quite
each other.
decent, and they can be decent to each other.
Right. So this is really political posturing, right? A lot of times.
So for me, for this reconciliation, for this unity government, I don't see it to be very difficult. Just imagine let's say in South Africa, when they're trying to form unity government, it's between, the radical ANC and those people who fight for national liberation with the white regime who has been oppressing them. So, but they have about 5 years of opportunity, peaceful time, transition towards a post-apartheid situation. I take a closer example from Malaysia, which is in Tunisia. The Islamist party Ennahda. Ennahda was magnanimous before enough to work with their previous oppressor, the Socialist Nationalist Party, to form a unity pact and to transit into a democratic democratic era. So their difficulty is much bigger. Someone who have been killing each other, and suddenly they have to come down together, which is wrong. I mean, we have been trying to deal with Arab-Israel reconciliation. I think it's much more difficult compared to our situation where our politicians are quite decent with each other, and I believe that it is not difficult for Hadi, for Anwar, for Muhyiddin, and for even Zahid to sit down and say, look, we can do something great for this nation.
Thank you. That was quite inspiring. YB, so if Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim he becomes prime minister, he offers you a senator role, uh, and so that you can
I
become a minister, or will you accept with UMNO in the coalition?
I have never thought about that at the moment, because to me, uh, I mean, that one will come when we decide then. But the key issues now is, before we reach that stage, I want to see there is a possibility of a stable, a government that truly represent the aspiration of the people. So whether I'm a minister or not, it's not important. In the last election, although we won, I didn't actively pursue to be part of the cabinet, although I was one of the senior vice president. I didn't seek to be appointed senator. I didn't seek to be appointed in the any ministerial post. But for me, once we are in government, there's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of holes to fix. There's a lot of things that, sometimes you do not need a ministerial post to do things. But I still believe, to be in power for a political party is very important. But to be placed in whatever position, it is quite flexible, because once you are in power, there's a lot of things you can do.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Just two final questions, YB. So the first one, if let's say tomorrow Anwar doesn't get to be prime minister, do you think it's time for him to step aside and step down?
I can't speak for him, right?
As a senior
really
member of PKR, what do you think? What would you like to see?
I think these are all okay. Whether a person step away or not is really much a personal decision to me, because certain society in the West, they have built a convention. Whenever you lose the election, you step down and then give to the next in line. Malaysia doesn't have that. If you ask me whether Anwar or whoever still have a role to play in politics, yes, certainly. Whether he's the leader of opposition or whether he is going to be a prime minister in waiting or not, he still has his own role. So does many other politicians. We can't just erase off their experience and their influence in the society. Like Kisiang, I don't think Kisiang is being, is faded from politics.
Right.
In fact, I just checked his tweet. His idea is very similar to me.
Yes,
He's
I saw that as well.
a
unity government,
PHPN and Borneo Bloc unity government, because each of them represents solid segment of the society that we cannot ignore. And these three segments must sit down and draft and and chart a new road for the future.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Final question, right, YB? If we were in fantasy land, and you could choose anybody, who would you want to be prime minister? Anybody?
Well, I think
can be yourself as well.
No. I think that is a bit too far-fetched to talk about. But I think if you ask me in the fantasy land, I would like to have some fun people to be with. I'd like to have people who really, if it's still a political one, I would like to see people who have fun and have visions and also frank. If you want me to choose, I would choose Fidel Castro. I need to polish my Spanish somehow.
Wow.
He will speak very fast, and I don't think I will know. I will catch what he say. But he will be historically, he will be a fun politician to be with. He's he has his vision. He can be very loud in debate, and he has in a fantasy land.
Right. Wow. I thought you were gonna go for Khairi or Nurul Izzah. I didn't expect that. YB, it's been a pleasure, and really wish you all the best in whatever you do. And I really hope that you will continue to be in the political scene and continue to be a minister, an MP, or whenever. Not continue to be a minister. You will be an MP. And thank you for everything that you've done.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Nice. It's a
Bye-bye.
pleasure
Yes.
talking to you.
Oh, it was
Yeah,
great. It was
okay.
great.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Okay. Bye.